I say?
Jump with it.
Gentlemen, how are we doing? We here.
Doing well.
We here again. How you doing? Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome again to another episode of The Living Room. It's fantastic to have you here joining with us as we do every Sunday afternoon. Well, depending on where you are, it might be Sunday evening or even Sunday morning. But we thank you so much for joining us. As usual, it's me, Andre, with my good friends Philip and Mark. If this is your first time, welcome to the show, The Living Room. What we do is that we just get people from right across the region on different days and talk about different things every Sunday. And because this is a Caribbean thing, we are one Caribbean as far as we see it, you know, all the different countries or states within that Caribbean. And we think that most of the topics that we talk about, well, I say most, all the topics we talk about are Caribbean wide in nature. So thank you so much for joining us. Hit like, hit follow on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching at the moment. Hit like and follow and you'll be able to get some of the content moving forward as well. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Look at that Phil like he burst into saying something.
No.
Well,
I just give me a bit of, you know. So I was going to do things like hit like. It's like a back and dancer. It's like
but you didn't know really like, but it was right. So you had to pause. You're like, really, but it is down there. Understandable. Hey, Cheryl. Oh, from Toronto. How are you doing, Cheryl King?
Cheryl from Toronto.
Thank you for joining us.
Cheryl, good to
Gentlemen,
see you
how are we
there.
doing?
Oh,
Keeping good.
I feel good.
You feeling good?
Yeah, man.
Hey,
The
Brian.
sunshine does a thing.
You do what?
The sunshine does something to you, I think.
Yeah, man.
That is very true. Well, yes. The sunshine.
I think
does, you know?
people might be curious that we talk about the weather a lot, but you know, before we moved to the UK, we would have wondered at that as well. But honestly, when you're here, weather is topic number one. It definitely is.
Listen, the Brits talk about weather more than anything else, and I think we assimilated now. Although you can kind of understand it though, because
You can.
you know,
Have to
and
talk about it.
especially for us. Let me tell you, it was a long winter. This winter, man.
Too long.
This winter was too long. That
It
was out
like
in the garden.
north of the wall.
No. Oh, you made some references there. All right, you down with the cool kids there, Phil. But this week I had my second vaccine. Hey, Jaylee.
Yeah, good.
I had my second vaccine, but you. So let me tell you, right? So I gone in there now. So I always got stories, right? So I gone in there now. Well, first of all, before them tell y'all, I don't like needles, right?
I wasn't
usually
into anything, but
Is
now
it-
you bring it out.
It's the one that is the macaroni needle, the one that they use to draw blood. I hate that. But anyway, so I gone in there and the first one was all right. It was good, you know. This older doctor, you know, lady, you know, she was give me a nice jug. I was like, oh, that wasn't too bad, easy. So I gone in there thinking, oh, all good. So I had this young fella, hey Valerie, this young fella, and he's like, oh, loosen up. After the talk, you know, listen. I let him jump on my chair. You must take me so hard. But you know you gotta play it cool, right? Because you can't be in there with all kind of people, so you gotta play it cool. So I in there straight face all up, but
So y'all
inside I didn't want to hit the man. I like, my man, what you doing? This thing hurt me so bad. Then.
You sure this
Anyhow.
wasn't somebody that you pass and then say good morning to?
Man, I feel he doing it on purpose. I tell Carol,
So-
his man had to look at me and holler for. Say, I don't like you. I don't like you. I can give you the treatment.
You probably watched one of our shows when you were saying, man, I go in there, back my shirt and all that kind of thing.
I can show you something.
I can show you that.
Hey, Karen, thank you. Yeah, man, this thing hurt me so bad. Then, cause Martin here, you said you got your second one and you don't feel a thing. You like,
I walked home, man. I was good.
But let me tell you, but it ain't good though. No, it only.
Let me just say
ain't
hello
Nicola.
to Nicola. This is my good friend. Chatted with her
okay.
earlier. I said I would give her a shout out.
Hey,
doing well.
Give your shout
Glad the
out.
sun is
Give your
shining.
shout out.
let's
I did
step
it already.
back.
That's it. Yeah.
We're not
Really good
afraid of
person.
any macaroni
Good
needles
person.
here, Phil.
Yeah. Macaroni, spaghetti, penny, needles, even.
Man, look, it good now though. Hey Eunice, it good now though. I good. The arm good now though. So that mean I'm fully vaxxed now. So it's only the young boy, Phil up there now.
It's coming up.
Waiting to get his now. When you coming
Coming
up?
up in 2 weeks.
In
2 weeks time.
Oh, hey Roma.
Hey,
We'll
Roma,
see.
good to see
Hey
you,
Roma
man.
from Antigua. Thanks.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
The first vaccine was fine. I must say the experience was okay, but I was a little bit ill for a week after.
ADD.
And the big mistake I made is not just stopping and say, okay,
You went for a run?
I went for a run. I went for many runs.
You,
I probably even sweat out the vaccine.
Clearly not enough, though.
No. I know.
Clearly not enough.
Yeah, man.
No, but I good now, man. I actually had no side effects apart from the fella that nearly that jacob on my arm. But other than that, I was fine. I didn't feel nothing at all as far as a side effect concerned.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
That's true,
That's
Valerie.
awesome, man. That's awesome.
But I good now. But I doing better. Wasn't gonna mention this, but I see you at I think something happened in Trinidad. I don't mean the issues there with COVID. I think what was this in football? I'm seeing everybody all across.
Gate.
Yeah, man. I see Trinidad in the morning at the moment. I'm not sure what's going on. With who?
Bahamas.
But let me see now. I sure some people beat
I shouldn't
Bahamas like
laugh
7-0 and 6-0 and thing. Oh Lord, Trini. Oh yeah, I'm sorry for you.
Yeah, it's heaping more misery.
Yes.
Our friends in Trinidad are having a really hard time at the moment.
A rough time, yeah. But it is football. These things can happen in football. Bahamas clearly had a good day, or Trinidad had an off day. But don't worry, Trinidad will come back next time.
Of course.
About that.
I'm sure
some other stuff happened this week, Mark. Some other sports stuff happened this week.
Well, I think we have to, we have to give a massive shout out to Shelly Ann Fraser Price. Fastest woman alive, I think is the line we gotta go with, man. 10.63. I think we're looking at a triple Olympic champion here, I reckon that she's gonna do it in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Every time I watch her run, I'd be amazed. I'd be like, cause she's so smart. Like, seriously? The rate that her feet has to be going around, and then as well as the power that she pushes off with, it has to be crazy, to be honest, to do the stuff that she does. But she's amazing. So congratulations.
I think the thing I love about her is that she still make it look as though she running at sports there at a
having
school.
fun. Having
exactly.
fun.
Yeah. All the
good.
time.
Yes, good spirit.
Tremendous. So Shelly, if you're watching, hey, come for a chat.
I was hoping you said so.
I think that'd be good. That would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Come for a chat.
Chat.
Come in the living room and let's have a chat about that, because she's amazing and she's really to be treasured across the region, to be honest with you.
She absolutely is. She absolutely is. So I'm hoping that she does the triple in Tokyo for sure. Sure.
Indeed. So wait, how things now up your side with things? Hey, Rosslyn, with things kind of opening up again now. Any trips to the office? Anything like that?
I've only been in once. I went 2 weeks ago. I might go again this week, but yeah, man. I need to get out the house, man. The sun is shining. There's no point being in the house all the time. So I might make another trip to the office this week and see how it goes.
All right.
I mean, it's having a place to work. You mean not just getting out the house, but actually for the entire day just working elsewhere is what you mean?
Just go to the office, man.
Yeah.
After being in the room for over 18 months, it's like it's tough. It's tough. So I welcome the lifting of the restrictions, although it's looking like come the 21st of June we might get ho.
Well.
Right?
I think we have to be prepared for that, honestly.
I kind of prepare myself for that, to be honest with you. Because we had, if you guys realize, but we went down to a day where we had zero deaths.
In the UK. First time since the pandemic.
Zero deaths. No, we went out a couple of weeks ago.
A week
before. And I now see that ticking back up slightly. I mean, 10, 11, 12 or so. I don't know what the figures are today. But usually there's something on the weekend. So by Monday, Tuesday is when you would have a truer picture of what that looks like. But I also see the cases are going up again.
Cases are growing.
And it's turned and it's going up again. So this is interesting to watch what's happening here. So I'm not too sure about the 17th of June thing the 21st of June thing that we have going on here.
What is going to be scary is if you drill into that data, and those cases are people who are vaccinated and still above a certain age.
Well, that's the part of the data they're not really telling you as yet.
Yeah.
But that's what you got to see. Is it all younger people who are
Who are
not
not
vaccinated?
vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Then you can say, okay, the vaccine is working.
exactly. Or is it
Yeah.
all the people who, you know, who have been vaccinated but probably think, hey, I'm good, so no mask and just walking about and that kind of stuff. But that's always the danger, right? Because
Yeah.
everyone says, hey, vaccine is the way out of this. And you see United States now talking about, hey, if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. You can just walk around. And I like, but hang on, vaccination just protects you.
I
It
think-
doesn't mean that you don't carry or you can't, you know, you can't distribute the virus. You can still give it to someone to a certain extent.
I think the government might have to send all the young people to Ibiza for a year. Let's go.
Go and party.
Let's go.
To do what? To let them get oil. But when you can let them back?
That's the question.
I think they will all go. That's the thing. It doesn't
would.
matter now
If they come
when
back.
are you going to let them come back, right?
Well, if
exactly.
they come back too.
Well, that's true. They might not want to come
Why
back.
would they? Exactly.
No, I 100% agree with that.
So look, this question of community, yeah, and even
that.
as we are looking at our community here in the UK, the question of community is always on our minds in the Caribbean, and it's a fascinating conversation to have, and how we look after each other, and I think today we've got quite a interesting group together from across the region to talk community.
Yeah. So when we thought about doing this, it was like looking across and knowing that there's some people who are really sacrificing and doing some great things and not letting go of that word community actually, and just putting their hand to the till and helping people where it needs to happen. Not waiting, they're getting involved. They're organizing. They're making stuff happen and making a difference in people's lives right then and there and really making an impact. And this is happening right across the region. And that's why we wanted to do this show today. And that's why the people that we're going to invite in, that's what we wanted to do. And the great thing about this, again, as I said, is it's right across the region. People putting their hands to the till on different things, you know. So that's what we really wanted to highlight. So today we go into Trinidad, St. Vincent, Jamaica, St. Lucia, and Barbados. And we're going to have Donnie from St. Vincent, Patrick from Jamaica, Venus Cherry from St. Lucia, Shamel from Barbados, and Amanda as well from Trinidad and Tobago. All doing some great things. We're going to let them share with you guys what it is they're doing. And we're going to just do as we normally do. Have a good old Caribbean conversation. So look, as they're joining us, guys, hit share, get all your network into the conversation, tag 10 friends so they can come in and be part of it as well. Because I think it's always great to hear what's happening right across the region, not just in your own island, but right across the region as well. And let's just hear, we are all about valuing ourselves. And this is going to be about this as well, about that as well today. So let's bring the guys in.
Yeah, man. Hi, Jamaria. How you doing, man? Hey, guys.
Hi.
Come in. Both sides of the door
There
open.
we go.
Come in.
Yeah.
Come in.
Full house today. Full house today. So guys in the audience, welcome them as well. Greetings.
Donnie coming through the window, you see yourself?
Yeah. He would do that.
Yes.
Well, thanks, everybody.
Indeed,
That's a
indeed,
dove.
indeed.
There's a dove I hear in the background. Quick. Ooh, 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 ooh.
Well, we know that's proper Caribbean.
Wow, soundtrack. Amanda, commiserations on the 0-0 with the Bahamas, but welcome to the living room. How you doing, man?
I'm
We had to
doing
start
very well,
there.
thanks. I'm doing very well, thanks. I mean, day of mourning and all, still doing well.
Sorry about that. We had to talk about that, right? So sorry, but
Wow. So listen, we've called this community heroes. You guys might not necessarily want to be labeled as such, but in truth, the effort and the willingness and the work that you're doing lends itself to that. So let's start with Shamel in Barbados, actually. Shamel, talk to our audience today, introduce yourself and tell them about the great work that you're doing there in Barbados.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. First, before I get into it, I really want to thank you guys for having me on the show just to be able to share a bit about what I'm doing over here in Barbados. Big up all my Bajan people who may be watching.
Mm.
As mentioned, my name is Shamel Rice, and I run an organization in Barbados called JBEZ House. That's JABEZ, so you can always go and check out our page. But Best House is a charity here on the island, and we pretty much have a program where we work with female sex workers, and our mission is basically to facilitate the transition process of those women who are desirous of leaving the trade but feel as if they have no alternative. So they're able to come into our programs free of cost, and we help them skill up in a variety of areas so they can have alternative economic employment opportunities. So whether that is, okay, I've now learned this skill, let's say doing nails, and I'm able to either start a small business of my own or find another means of employment, that we pretty much make that possible through our programs and our services. So this is now almost 9 years since we've been going, and it's just been a fantastic journey. We've been able to work with about 500 ladies and see a lot of them transition from the trade and just be doing like really, really good things. And also, yes, it's really a labor of love, but it's something that I quite enjoy myself and the team, and we're just over here just keeping at it and empowering women and transforming lives.
Indeed,
That is
indeed.
amazing.
That's amazing.
Go
We
ahead,
can definitely come back to that and
Right.
and share a little bit about that and just a good understanding what's happening there. Venus in St. Lucia, how's it going,
Good
man?
afternoon. Good
Dr.
afternoon. Oh,
Venus
it's
Cherry.
great.
How's
It's
St.
a
Lucia one? And
beautiful
just
day
tell
here
us
in
a
St.
little bit
Lucia.
about what you get your hand to.
St. Lucia is beautiful right now. Little sunshine, scattered rain, but all in all, it's nice. I'm in the countryside, so it's always a nice cool breeze.
Ooh.
As you guys heard earlier, the roosters are out there, making noise. But St. Lucia is beautiful. It's nice. It's
Yeah,
home.
man.
It's good to be in St. Lucia right now because I reside in the U.S. So whenever I'm in St. Lucia, it's always a beautiful thing. Um,
Oh.
Here in St. Lucia, I am currently the chairman of Rise St. Lucia, which is an NGO organization founded in 2007.
Mhm.
I've only recently become the chairman, and in part due to the work I've been doing in the country in terms of helping the less fortunate. So it's something I'm very passionate about because of my background of growing up in poverty. And we have a saying in St. Lucia. We have a kudme society. A kudme is like when everybody comes together to pretty much help you build a house for free. You provide liquor and food, and the plumber shows up, the carpenter, the mason. Everybody just shows up and builds your house for you. So it's pretty much how I was raised in terms of my mom had nothing, so whatever we had, people gave it to us one way or the other, whether it was used clothes, broken up toys, outdated toys, whatever it was always like gold for us when we got it. So um, with my life having changed due to my profession and financial status, currently I'm able to come back to St. Lucia and help give another child a chance like I got. So I've been doing book drives. We had a book drive last year where we pretty much encourage everyone who has school books that they're no longer using, instead of leaving it under the cupboard or in a corner somewhere, to drop it off for us. And anyone who had a book list, just come and pick it up for free. So it was amazing because the entire country got involved. People like we had thousands of books dropped off, thousands picked up. We had school supplies. People from the US, my friend's family got involved, and so they sent us barrels of school supplies, school bags, everything, school shoes, and it was all for free. It was all for free. Like, so we donated school shoes throughout the country. We took the drive from the north. We went around the country. So different weekends, we would be in different parts of the island giving away stuff. We've also, with the pandemic happening, food security was a big issue for us in St. Lucia. We had St. Lucia still is under an SOE, but we had lockdowns. We had 24-hour curfew lockdowns. We had adjustments throughout. Some of the biggest issue is people not having food. So many have lost their jobs, and people just need some help. So I've been writing to to different companies throughout the country and getting assistance, and my team and I packaging groceries and dropping it for the elderly, the disabled, single parents throughout the country.
Wow.
Okay.
The biggest event we undertook last year and still going today was electronic devices for kids in need, with school being into a blended approach right now, where it's some days at home, some days at school. And even before that blended approach, school was closed, where it was just like at home. But so many of our kids in St. Lucia, their parents can't afford to have a computer or electronic device. So I was able to raise funds and get devices to kids in need. And to date, we've given out over 1,000 tablets, because we went with tablets as opposed to computers, because of course it's cheaper to buy a tablet. So we get to reach more households than if we tried computers. So we've had, my team and I, we've been writing letters to every corporation, every organization, every business, every individual we can find, raising funds and partnering with Digicel and the Cell St. Lucia and many other companies in order to get discounts on purchasing the devices and getting stuff to them. So that's what we're doing. I'm back in St. Lucia right now, and the effort continues.
Excellent. We can dig into that later as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And there's a lot of love coming there in the chat for you there, Venus. You know,
someone even asking if there's a Barbados connection with you, if you have any family in Barbados as well, because I know
we got Agent Cherry.
You've been thinking about that all week.
He was waiting for it, man. He was holding that one.
All right, well, let's go across further to Patrick in Jamaica. Patrick, tell us about the work that you're doing there, please.
Okay, afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I have to start by picking up Shelly as well, because it's all celebration here in Jamaica. But you guys mentioned it earlier, but you know, it's almost here in Jamaica. It's almost like we expected nothing else. It's what we expected.
Fair enough.
But when it happens, you still gotta celebrate it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, we still always celebrate it. And we are under curfew as well. So, you know, I should be out. I'll be out now. The weekends continue to be locked down on the weekend after. But things are going on well so far. Now, my name is Patrick Layla, and I work with the Jamaica Aid Support for Life. We are the largest and longest serving non-government organization that provides treatment and care services to people living with an affected by HIV. So pretty much outside of the state, we are the non-government agency that provides full service to people living with an affected by HIV, people who could not, under normal circumstances, access all that they need to maintain their health. We provide such services for them. So it's not just about HIV prevention, treatment, and care services, but we look at the whole person. So if it is food, we provide food packages for these persons. We cover transportation costs to ensure they can keep their clinic appointments. And also the other arm of our work is to provide representation to the state and to any agency whatsoever where we find that these people may be facing any issues of stigma and discrimination, where you find that people, because of their HIV status, they can't get jobs or they are put out of their jobs the minute someone finds out their status. We provide that kind of representation. Okay. So if it means going to court, if it means providing an attorney, whatever it takes to ensure that these people can live full life, free of stigma and discrimination, Jamaica Aid Support for Life provides that service. We also provide very strong psychosocial support, and all our services are provided at no cost to these. So that's basically a synopsis of it.
That's a good overview.
Incredible.
Yeah.
No, that's a fantastic overview. So, Donnie, let's come to St. Vincent. You're a friend of the show. You've been on a couple of times, but, we thought it was very important to keep what's happening in St. Vincent, in the public's eye, because we don't want to, people can say, well, the ash stopped falling now. So we're sure everything is all right. But we wanted to make sure that we definitely kept St. Vincent, in the public sight. So tell me, how are things? And let's let the public know what it is that you are getting involved with. Can you hear me?
I think he's muted at the moment.
Yeah, there's a bit of delay there. Okay, we'll come back to Donnie. Amanda, Trinidad.
Hi.
How are you doing? Tell us a little bit of what it is that you're involved with.
Well, let me first say that I'm very happy to be here this afternoon with so many excellent members of our Caribbean family. I'm Amanda Mcintyre. This evening, I'm speaking in my capacity as policy and advocacy specialist with She Right Collective. She Right Collective is a Caribbean-based feminist organization focused on, but not limited to, sexual and reproductive health and rights. The work of She Right involves medical interventions, legal consultations, workshops, training, research, and scholarship. I have 10 years of experience working in advocacy, and this includes leadership positions in organizations and frontlining campaigns that addressed gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. And my most recent public work included challenging an organization in upholding its mission with regards to gender-based violence. And if I would state my own mission, I would say that I am interested in challenging and changing Caribbean cultures of violence.
Wow.
Excellent. And staying on that, go back to the beginning. What made you get involved?
Well, largely, my work in feminism was born out of a concern for myself as a woman and a concern for the women around me. So I grew up in central Trinidad, specifically Chaguanas, and the older women who were women of African heritage, women of Indian heritage. I mean, I would not go so far as to say that the area was matriarchal, but seeing the ways in which they supported each other, the ways in which they supported their families, the ways in which they really not just supported families, but specifically the ways in which they emboldened the girls in these areas, that inspired me a lot. And to this day, I continue to reflect on indigenous feminisms in the Caribbean. There is value in looking outward and engaging conversations in other areas of the world. But I think there is also great value in reflecting on things that are indigenous to the Caribbean as well.
So you used a term there that I was like, ooh, a culture of violence. Do you feel that that's sort of a real characteristic of the Caribbean, this culture of violence, or is it a more general thing?
Well, I wouldn't say it's characteristic of the Caribbean as to say like that is the only or the first thing we see when we think about the Caribbean. But I do think that the Caribbean has its own brand of violence. And of course, this is supported because of our history, and it's supported because of our politics, and it's supported by our current engagements interregionally and outside of the region as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's something I would like to continue chatting about as we go through.
Yeah. Awesome. Donnie, have we got you back there? No,
yeah, I think Donnie's stuck.
I think he's frozen out. Okay. Well, look, Shamal, you talked there about supporting sex workers, and I want you to talk about some of the scale of this challenge to people who are watching today, because it's really something that we probably don't understand the scale of the challenge. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, sex work is something that a lot of people still don't want to talk about. And it's something that's been around forever, And the truth is, at least based on what I've been experiencing here in Barbados, the women that we work with who find themselves having made a choice to do sex work, in most cases, it's not that they really want to do it. It's really a case of, I need to be able to survive. I need to be able to feed my children. And therefore, if I need to do this, I am going to do this. So we have a lot of that. And especially since the pandemic, I don't necessarily want to say that there has really been an increase in terms of what we may see on the streets or in the clubs or wherever we normally would engage women. But there have been so many more women reaching out, to us on our social media platforms and sharing just how dire their situations now are. Children are at home a lot more, so it means food is going out of the house a lot faster. And just last week, I remember one lady reached out, a young girl, like, I think maybe 23 the most, and she was sharing, like, I don't really want to have to do this, and it's not like I'm out there really, really doing it as much, but right now this is my position. And any person I've approached, especially if it's a male, they are always asking for, some sort of sexual favor. And she sent me a screenshot of one of the most vile messages that a man sent her, who I guess she assumed to be her friend. A man sent her when she basically asked for some assistance. So I feel as if the pandemic has made persons who were already vulnerable even more vulnerable, and you have women who right now, even if they don't want to, are feeling powerless because of just their situations right now. So it's really something, I mean, the world over, that countries are dealing with. And we would like to pretend like it's not happening. And there are some persons who would necessarily not even label themselves as sex workers, but they do engage in transactional sex work, just to be able to survive and to be able to get along. So we don't see the women, I just want to say here, we don't paint the women as victims, as all poor things. We see all of our clients as individuals who, this could easily have been me. And you know what? You might, if you want an opportunity to be able to move from this space, we're just going to try to make that possible, along with meeting your very basic needs as well. So that's really just what we're keeping our heads down on and focusing on as we continue just to address the challenges that come up.
But Shamel, if you're meeting with people who are doing something that's meeting a need, and they're sort of practicing doing that, and it works, they're in a system that works, so to speak. They do something and it's compensated. How do you go through convincing someone there is a better life for you? There's the opportunities that we can show are better than what you are, where you currently are.
What I would say is, our mission is not to convince anybody of anything. People will choose what they want to choose, and it's neither for us to say if it's right or wrong, right? So even if I may not think it is right, it's not for me to come and say, what you are doing is wrong. This is not the thing to do. You are going to make your choice, and at the end of the day, persons, my thing is, if you can't help, then don't hurt. So if I don't think what you're doing is good and right and whatever, it's none of my business. I'm going to move on. However, persons that do approach us or find out about our services, they want the assistance. So it is not a matter of trying to convince them.
So you have people
or
coming
show them.
to you as opposed to it's not sort of you're going out and finding people and bringing them off
No,
the street.
we do that. We do that
Okay,
as well.
you do that as well.
So with most ladies, how they would find out about our programs is because we do street outreach. We go to the clubs, we go wherever, right?
Yeah.
So that's where most of the ladies would initially find out about us, and that has been our main vein of remaining in touch with the community and knowing what's happening.
Yeah.
But then over time, there are women who then would know about us, and they would refer a friend and tell a friend, and then persons would reach out and they would say, hey, I heard about this program, I want to plug in, I heard about this. But what I would say is, even a person who has who may find themselves doing sex work, and I've engaged personally well over 500 women, right? So I'm telling you, I would be hard pressed to find 2 of them who want to remain in sex work, even if there's the money. Like women have said to me, Shamel, I have made good money. There's good money and there's honest money, and I'm at a stage in my life where I'm just tired of this and I just want to just have honest money. Or there are persons who, yes, the money may be there, but then a lot of them, and I'm not saying this for every single woman, but the large majority that I've dealt with, there are then so many other issues that come along with that. So then you see women presenting with a lot of other challenges. Then dealing with severe depression. There are persons who would have had maybe traumatic experiences as children, whether that is sexual abuse or whatever. And every time I've had clients say to me, I don't really want to do this, and I really know I need to move from here, because every time I go on a job and I see this man on top of me, I see my grandfather, I see this, so, but again, persons might feel as if I have to do this right now
Yeah.
because the bills gonna get paid. My children
Yeah.
to be fed. So, a lot of them find themselves sometimes then just, using some other coping mechanism, whether that is drugs or alcohol or whatever,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be able to navigate that. But it's difficult. So we don't need to necessarily convince persons, women who want our services, they reach out and they're able to access them.
Now,
Thanks for that. That's
so
good.
Patrick, Shamelda alluded to the circumstances of COVID, the lockdowns, all these different things. Now, do you think has that played a role? Do you think in I don't know, increased instances, or I think Shamel also mentioned, men being a bit lewd and a bit crude and stuff as well. Has anything around this time around COVID changed the situation or caused and more urgency for your work in Jamaica?
I I definitely can relate to what Shamel said, and as an organization, just so we work with sex workers as well, and that is one of the groups that we find the challenges have been quite steep since COVID-19 in terms of the the lockdowns and the curfews are generally during the period when they would be doing business. So you can imagine one of the things we have had to do was we have significantly stepped up food packages to that population in particular since COVID-19 to ensure that they are able to have just some of the basic needs of life. Because what we realize is that the risk that they have to take have indeed increased because the harder their circumstances are, there are clients who will demand sexual favors in unsafe ways. You can imagine as an
Okay.
HIV
Okay.
focused organization, what
Yeah.
we do is, and like Shamel said, we're not necessarily out there convincing anybody to stop doing sex work. People who want to stop doing sex work engage us and we can provide that kind of support. But the bigger focus for us is how can we help these women do what they are doing safely? So our outreach team goes on the street corners, in the clubs, wherever they are, and provide the commodities for them to be able to engage in their trade safely. But what we find is that as the pressures come on with COVID-19, the hours that they can be out there have reduced significantly. So you might find men that approach them offering lots more money than they'd normally get to like have unprotected sex and stuff like that, and then
Yeah.
it becomes tempting in a period of time like this. So we find we have to provide much more support for them to ensure that they can still stay afloat and not give in to these risks. Because one of the things we don't want to see is increased. Interestingly, the sex work population is one of the populations in which we have seen significant reduction in terms of new infections of HIV. They,
Interesting.
unlike what the general public may think of sex workers, they are one of the safest
They
populations
work safe,
in
yes.
terms of practicing safe sex. I guarantee you that of all the surveys you do, you'll find that a sex worker will practice safe sex more than anybody else out there. And it is
Interesting.
evident, it is very evident in the prevalence rate in Jamaica. When I got into this work maybe a little over a decade ago, the prevalence rate of HIV among sex workers was 12 point something percent. It is now down to under 3% in that 2 point something in that
Wow.
period of time.
Okay.
So since COVID has been here, we have had to be paying much more attention to that population, ensure that we provide the support they need so that they are not forced into high risk practices that can increase their vulnerability to HIV. And I just want to say, I think it was Amanda that spoke about the issue of the culture of violence. I was a
It
bit
was.
surprised to use that exact term because we have been using that a lot in Jamaica. This culture of violence, and especially for us, the connection with HIV. We have seen so many persons becoming HIV positive as a result of sexual violence,
Yeah.
and it has become so normalized where people think it's just a little this or just a little that. Nobody sees it as this is violence that is increasing people's risk. So even an important part of our work is the focus on gender-based violence and for us, it is that connection with HIV, because HIV is a sexually transmitted infection. If you are exposed to sexual violence, if a woman is in a relationship where the man decides what happens when she has sex, how she has sex, on what terms she has sex, then of course that's going to increase our vulnerability. So we have had to make that a major part of our work. And one of the big things we have been doing for the past 7 years, unfortunately, it didn't happen in 2020 because of COVID. Well, it happened virtually. We did a scaled down virtual version, but we have had a silent protest on November 25th each year to mark the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And we have big march, hundreds of people through the streets of Jamaica on November 25th each year, all decked in purple shirts, showing Stop Violence Against Women. We were not able to do that this 2020 November, you can imagine, and we are still not sure if we'll be able to do. Right, there you see the photos of the shirts we wear on that day, and hundreds of people decked in those shirts marching around, calling on our policymakers, calling on men, calling on everyone to join the fight to end violence against women. And we sure do hope that things will get back to as close to normal as soon as possible, so we can have the event this November.
Venus, you were saying in St. Lucia have similar issues around COVID and sex work and the issues that it presents.
Yes, well, I don't even think we have any agency or any organization in St. Lucia that deals with sex work. I don't think people ever label it that way, or we don't have. I mean, for example, most of our strip clubs that we have, dancers come in from Jamaica, South America. There are very few St. Lucians in there simply because our country is so unforgiving. I mean, the name calling, the stigma, and everything else. So, whoever is involved in this, it's held a secret by them and their family. But what I've found is, since I've been doing the food hampers and stuff like that, when I get the Facebook messages, the WhatsApp messages, the details are scary. The things that people tell you they've had to endure for the last 6 months or 9 months or a year in order to feed their kids. You get stories of people saying they're reaching out to government officials, ministers, and the responses are that, quid for crow, like, I'm going to do this for you, but, so a lot of young women, a lot of women are going through this, even if they're not, like she said, quote unquote, think of themselves as sex workers, or even if, like St. Lucia, we don't even have that label because there's no organization to take care of those people, so there's no statistic really, but it's been happening a lot, and a lot of young people, especially single moms, are the ones paying the consequences of that. I get the stories, and some of the stories, I can tell you guys, it's depressing to the point where you can't even sleep at night. I find myself, I'm fortunate to have a COVID pass where I can be out past the curfew hours, and I use that solely to go and drop food packages and stuff for people at crazy odd hours of the night, just because the stories that they give, I don't feel like I could sleep and get to them tomorrow. I feel like it's an immediate where I have to get to them whatever time I get the message. But it's a serious issue, and it's something I think I'm really grateful for the fact that you guys are putting on, but I also think it's something that we need to take to our respective parliaments. We need to take to our government officials, and we need to have that fight happen from the highest level to the lowest level. It needs to be a holistic approach in order for us to fight this, because what we're trying to do is like putting a plaster on an open wound, where really and truly we need stitches through this in order to help it wound and help it heal. So it's definitely happening here, even if it's not labeled that. But a lot of people who are suffering right now, lost their jobs and seeking assistance, are being asked for sexual favors in order for them to get assistance, and that is a major problem.
Wow. Incredible. So no, I want to try and see if I can get Donnie in on this conversation. Donnie, are you hearing us?
I'm not sure. He's on mute. No, we got some issues there. We got to move on.
Okay. Well, look, Amanda, the question there was raised about policy and how our...
All right, here we go.
Oh, yes, sir.
I'll come back to policy in a moment. Donnie, are you
You're
all
not
right?
hearing me because I'm here with you.
Oh, we can hear you now.
You
We
are
can hear
muted a
you
I
little
now.
don't
bit.
know because
We
I'm
can hear
trying
you
to
now.
talk, but it doesn't seem as if
You got you
Don't
loud and
worry.
clear now. You got you
We're
loud
on
and
now.
clear.
Don't bring that St. Vincent
okay. Good
Baton
evening,
thing.
guys.
Isn't that?
Hey, how are things, Donny? And let
Yeah.
everyone know what you're getting involved
I'm,
with
I'm
your work.
I'm good, guys. I'm good. Thank you very much again for inviting me back. I've been listening to the conversation, and I'm a bit overwhelmed because we are so much alike and not very different at all. I'm
Mm-hmm.
here in Jamaica. I'm here, and we can fit right into all of that. It's the same landscape, same situations,
Mm-hmm.
um, same HIV situation, the same sex worker. And my Lucian brother just mentioned that we don't like labels. We play Christian and we keep those labels to ourselves. But the reality is there, and we are well aware of what is happening. And I guess it goes far and wide. I'm glad that there are many of us who still can bridge the gap and can still decide to go beyond what the authorities may want to do and do a little extra. So thank you very much. I guys listen to the conversation. But from my end, I can I carry two from angle. I can tell you that we can still say that we are not yet out of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
The scientists are saying that there's still this period of uncertainty where the volcano can erupt again at any time. Interestingly, those very same authorities decided that it's time for those guys to go basically empty the
Back to the
shelters.
north.
Ask me the reason that
Mm.
volcano, the high threat of and these people right back into all of the all of the mess, all of
All right, Donny's
All
breaking
right,
up
yeah,
quite a bit.
yeah. Donnie, we're gonna
and
have to
then their livelihoods have been
You're breaking up quite a bit, Donny.
Yeah.
the small business pop shops. They
All right, you're gonna have to go.
yeah. We're gonna have to pick
Yeah,
that up
let's go.
separately.
That's all right.
Jay.
Well, hopefully he'll be able to get back on. I'll talk to him.
Yeah.
Go on.
Okay. Well, look. Just for everybody's benefit, look, we want Donnie in this conversation because we committed in the living room to making sure, as a Caribbean conversation, St. Vincent is our business, and we are going to make sure that whilst the world's media has gone off to cover what else they need to cover, we are staying in our Caribbean story and supporting our brothers and sisters. So it's really important that we capture what's happening there as things start to change.
Yeah. I think, Mark, if we don't get
yeah.
Donnie back in, we need to talk about his work and what
Yeah.
he's doing.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about that.
Absolutely. And just to go back to the point that was being made by Venus, Amanda, about policy, working in this area and supporting women and girls and finding safe spaces and trying to make sure that we can have a reverse culture is difficult without having the policy instruments to support you and the strong policy instruments to support you. I wonder if you've got any thoughts that you can share in what you've seen around perhaps the lack of policy in that area.
Right. Well, I was impressed listening to the three speakers before on the topic of sex work, because in considering Caribbean cultures of violence, that is one of the targeted groups that I think about all the time and I've written about as well. And in particular, what Venus was saying just now about the conservative culture of St. Lucia, I think we find that all across the Caribbean. And it's one of the unfortunate conflicts that we inherited from our colonial legacy. This idea of being very conservative in a society that shows us that there are interventions that must be made because there are so many people at risk and turning to situations that put them in even further precarious positions. And sex work in the Caribbean has to be treated, of course, within the Caribbean context again because of this colonial legacy, because of how we think about the ownership of bodies and who owns our bodies. And from the time you are in a situation in which someone has paid for sex, which I have to say is valid, legitimate work, but also work that is greatly precarious. The person is at a risk of violence and at a risk of death all the time. And so this has to be one concern that leaders in the Caribbean must pay greater attention to, and one that has not received enough attention, and one area in which it has not received enough attention. Again, going back to what Venus was talking about with regards to clubs and who are featured more in clubs: migrants, refugees, asylum seekers. And not only is this one of the unfortunate aspects of Caribbean migrations, but it's also one of the ways in which migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers are further penalized by wider society, that engages in further conservatism in their oppression of people who are in those circumstances. So it's an incredibly complex topic, one that has not received enough attention, and one for which there must be urgent development and application of policy.
And you mentioned migrants there just now, and I know with Trinidad, especially with the Venezuelans coming over and what's not, have you find that that's been a particular issue, increased instances of that kind of violence and stuff as well?
Yes, we had some cases earlier this year that were terrible. I mean, the ways in which Venezuelan women and girls are treated in Trinidad is just despicable. And I mean, and I say this as a Trinidadian, that we have not been acting the way we should towards our nearest neighbor, which is Venezuela, especially at this time of political unrest that has resulted in the mass exodus of Venezuelans into other areas bordering Venezuela and into other areas within the Caribbean region as well. And one of the ideas that had been propagated in Trinidad about the Venezuelan person, specifically the Venezuelan woman, is that they are sex workers. And we see this all the time online in the comments that citizens would make under, for example, newspaper articles related to migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. And we have unfortunately seen attacks on women in public. One woman was terribly attacked, beaten so badly, and left for dead on the side of the road. And this was not the only incident, but I just bring it up to show you just how far it has gone. And really unfortunate, because this situation in Jamaica is one that we could remember generationally. I remember in the 1980s thinking of Venezuela as this immense shopping zone, and everybody wanted to go there to shop.
Down to shop.
And
Down to Caracas.
to Caracas, exactly. My
That's the
aunt
90s
was
for
right
you.
in the
20
next
days you
room.
went down there.
Exactly. My aunt in the next room had gone to Caracas so many times when I was a small child. And when Venezuelans came to Trinidad, they were treated in like regard, as the people, these are our friends. We go there to shop and they come by us to shop. And just within the space of one generation, we have seen the complete change in that. And I mean, this is unfortunate because we could track the economic decline, but more so just the culture of the cult of personality around leaders in Venezuela, of course, also contributed to that as well. And within Caribbean migrations, historically within Caribbean migrations, sex work has been part of the conversation. And because of that, once migrants enter a situation in present time, that becomes unfortunately part of the way in which they are branded. And this unfortunately promotes the ways in which they are treated, and oftentimes the treatment is violent.
I wanted to ask Shamel, 'cause I saw Shamel was you're engaging with a lot that Amanda was saying there. But do we have a similar, when I say we, I'm from Barbados as well, but is there a similar profile in Barbados in terms of migrants as sex workers, and I'm sort of treated as the scourge of society in a sense beneath the sheath of conservatism? Does that exist as well?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I was just really agreeing with what Amanda was saying because it's true. So yes, in Barbados, we still need to call ourselves a Christian society and all of that. So whenever you do find someone or find women who are choosing this road for whatever reason, there's definitely still a lot of stigma there attached to that. So just as Venus was saying, how unforgiving their society is there. I often feel that way in Barbados. So there are women who have transitioned from sex work. They may have their own businesses or they're working in a job. And someone may come in and say, but you know that she used to do this and so and so. And sometimes that has resulted in women
We
losing.
don't let people forget where they come from when it comes to that kind of
Listen,
thing, boy.
you
We
know,
don't
funny, we
care where
got
you
this
go. We
person
don't let it
working in
forget.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that has not been good. In terms of the migrant issue, though, I would definitely say a lot of the ladies I have worked with have also definitely been from outside of Barbados. I don't necessarily want to just kind of pinpoint countries. I don't want people to feel like I'm trying to,
That's not what we
But
do. That's fine.
in addition to what Amanda was saying, though, I've definitely seen some of those persons here. And I found that we call it like the Spanish clubs or whatever where you might find some of these women in, and they are in a really, I find my heart breaks. I feel even more for ladies who find themselves from those countries, even more so than another English speaking one, because you're in a country where nobody even understands what you're saying, right? So you're not able to speak the language of the masses, so that even if you are experiencing some sort of violence and assault, to be able to report the things that are happening, to be able to really negotiate properly for things, it makes you even more vulnerable. So you already have women, so you have English speaking and some Bajan sex workers who may be assaulted, and a lot of them are assaulted. I mean, rape, kidnap, gangbang, whatever you could think of, and they do not report a lot of these crimes because of fear of discrimination and what they think may happen to them. Furthermore, a woman who is in a country she does not speak the language, there's already this stigma attached to, oh, you came from this place, and so then it's even worse. So I was just sitting listening to Amanda like, yo, I fully
You
agree
get
with
it.
what you're
Get
saying.
that. Get that.
Definitely get that. It's really a sad reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So two things there. So, look, guys, I know we staying on the sex working point a bit, but that's okay. We want to flush out these things. That's why we do a couple hours, because we can get under the hood of some of this stuff and really talk about it openly and honestly. So, Patrick, in Jamaica, two things. One, on policy, you can talk about policy and how that's being impacted in Jamaica. But secondly, someone mentioned earlier, and it is true, that men are also involved in sex work. And I wondered if your organization gets involved in that. I don't want to call out Jamaica, because I think it's the same thing right across the region as far as the stigma against gay men, especially gay men and what's not. But I wonder, how does your organization get involved in that, what the work it's doing? And then perhaps you can mention a bit on policy also.
Sure, thank you very much. I mean, sure, call us out. We have no problems. We have been taking the blows for it already. So we in Jamaica, we provide at Jamaica Aid Support for Life, we provide services to whoever needs it without discrimination. And I did see the point about our boys too. And one of the challenges, this is so strongly connected with policy in our country because, for example, our Sexual Offences Act, and like similar across the region, you may have one or two variations, only recognize vaginal penetration without consent as rape. That is one.
Oh.
So when we talk about sexual violence against our boys, our law full stop presumes a man cannot be raped. Full stop.
What?
That's not recognized in law
Wow.
in Jamaica. So
Wow.
that
Whoa.
is another thing we have had challenges with. So even mind you, there's an offense on the book for it, but it's not rape, one, and it carries maybe less than half the penalty that one would get for rape. And two,
Oh.
men who experience this sort of sexual violence in Jamaica are even afraid to report it because one, they are either they run the risk of being accused of being gay while this happened to you,
Wow.
and or make the discrimination that they face generally, the discrimination that they face, and the fact that the law treats it as a way lesser offense, for the most part, is not worth the time to go and report it.
That's
So one of the
incredible.
things we have had to do is
Well, I can't even
we
begin to
provide
fathom
support
that.
for sex workers, whether male or female, right across the board. That is for all. And also, one of the things we find is that we have had to. I heard Venus mentioned earlier about putting on a band-aid and the fact that we need to take these issues to our parliament. I can tell you that we have been doing that in Jamaica. We have made numerous submissions to our parliament. One of the major submissions that we have made pretty recently, which was totally rejected, is the fact that this very limited definition of rape that we have in our laws cannot continue to happen. Because when we look at the reality out there, that's not what's happening out there. Just maybe just 3 weeks ago, there were 2 incidents of young girls who were raped, and I use raped in quotation because our law said it was not rape. So these 2 young girls were buggered. The rapist, which is what I see him as, penetrated their anus, and the law says, our law says, oh, they were not raped
What?
Yeah.
This is
because the rapist
incredible.
didn't enter their vagina. So this is one of the things. So it's not just, I want you to understand that it's not just for boys. Even if the
Yeah.
female get anal penetration
Yeah.
without her consent, the law says she was not raped.
And Patrick, do you think this is something that is across the board in the region, likely?
Well, it is very much, as a matter of fact, when as you know, I'm the policy person for my organization. So most of these submissions and presentations to the parliament, I lead on that. And one of the key things that I've had to do when I'm preparing these submissions is to look at the region, because I can tell you about our parliament is that they are very much not, they don't readily welcome legislative examples from the United States, from Europe. Even
They say
though
we different. We different.
right, even though our judicial system is fully adopted from the UK, they
Exactly.
don't. So what I've had to do in preparing these submissions to the parliament is look at the region. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of these laws are the same across
Are
the
the same.
region. So
Historical.
I remember when I
I
was
can't even fathom
looking-
what I'm hearing, to be honest with you.
It's unbelievable stuff.
when I was
Wow.
looking at rape, I think it was only, if I'm remembering well here, I maybe need to look back at something. It was maybe only Barbados and Trinidad, I think, that had a more progressive definition in their Sexual Offences Act. But across the
Interesting.
region, it was the same thing. The same thing we find with violence against women, domestic violence, gender-based violence. We have had to be making representations about strengthening our policies and our laws around that, because we still have very weak laws around domestic violence, where men who perpetrate violence against women get off with a slap on the wrist, because
Yeah.
Currently in Jamaica, our Domestic Violence Act really don't criminalize domestic violence itself. What it criminalizes is the breach of some orders that are made by the court if it is found that you perpetrated domestic violence. So the policy and legislative framework is a real mess. We have made numerous representation to our parliamentarians, trying to get them to look at it. As a matter of fact, coming this Wednesday, June 9, whenever June 9 is, I'm trying to remember if it's Wednesday, June 9, right. I'm going to invite you all, and I'll share it. We'll be having a webinar, a live online discussion with
Yeah,
two of
we'll
our
share it on our page.
policymakers,
Yeah.
about this very issue of our Sexual Offences Act, this whole issue of this limited view of rape. And in wrapping up this point, I will say to you, the challenge we find in Jamaica, why our legislators have refused to amend the law, the policies and laws around especially rape and violence, is the bottom line is homophobia.
Homophobia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Positioned it as if we now say that rape includes anal penetration, then we are almost accepting that behavior that we don't want to see in Jamaica. So that is raping.
But you put both men, women, boys, and little girls at risk. So how can?
And that is the pitch. That is the pitch that we have had to, because we as an organization represent everyone.
Yeah.
We have to be, even the framing of our conversations, we have had to be careful, because our calling for anal penetration to be rape is said that we are trying to sneak in homosexuality through the
Of
back
course.
door,
Yeah.
and the next thing we are going to call for is to legalize homosexuality.
But does the general public, when they hear you make this call, do they agree? Because I guess the whole point, the whole thing as well is, where's the public on this? Where's
That
the
is the
public
point.
in being able to force that conversation?
That is where we have had to be doing public sensitization with the general public to get them to understand. What we find when you approach the public has a very hands-off to it, because if you know Jamaica, anything suggesting anything homosexual, it's a hands-off approach. So the public would very much object to it. But what they don't understand is that when you sit them down and say, listen, if your little daughter is walking down the road tomorrow morning and a rapist jump out of the bushes, grab her, and decides to penetrate her anus and not her vagina, then the law
It's
says
not rape.
your daughter was not raped. And then they jump back and say, is that so? I said, yes, that is so. So when you take it from that angle, you will get support from the public. But generally, the pushback is the homophobic behavior that it causes.
Venus, you wanted to jump in on that as well?
Most definitely. I've had the issue, especially here in St. Lucia, for example. Age of consent is 16, which means a 16-year-old can sleep with a grown man, and that's normal. But that 16-year-old can't vote to decide who governs or who rules the country. So if it's okay for them to have sex with grown men, if you're saying they're old enough to make that decision, why are they not old enough to make the decision as to who represents us on the global stage or who makes rules and policies that govern us? And it's listening to this is like a horror movie, because it's like, what do you mean if someone goes up my child's age? Like, it's not like we have rules and regulations that are supposed to govern us so that we all live peacefully. And we bring down the crime rate at the same time, but it's like some of those laws are pushing you to become criminals. It's like, there is no way you can explain to me as a father that this guy did not rape my child just because he went through the anus, and not like you are telling me to spend the rest of my life in prison, and I'm not a violent person. But it's like some of those that, like, this is the problem we have with what we're all trying to do. We're on the ground, you see what's happening, you understand what's happening, but sometimes you feel helpless. Like, here in St. Lucia, people are scared to go to the police to report stuff like that, because it's like, for our general public, and just like Patrick explained, most times people don't even know what the laws are. They might have heard of it, but there's no one to break it down for them in layman terms for them to understand that. Just like what he said, that means if your young daughter is walking and someone penetrates her anus, it's not rape. No one breaks it down like that. So people might just say, oh, this law exists, but do they really understand what it is? We find that the general public don't. They don't really understand what it is until now. When we say until it hits home, then people show concern, and it's like they cry foul when it hits home. But before that, they were like, they were going to be all against it. And a lot of it in St. Lucia is political. It's like if it's a particular political party that is enacting a law or legislation, this side is all for it, and you can't say anything to them. this side is all against it, and you can't say anything to them. And no one really there's no healthy debate and discussion as to the pros and cons, so the general public understands what we're signing into law or why we're saying we don't want it. It's just all political, and politics get in the way. And in the end, when elections is done, the next 5 years, people are suffering from those same laws that they may have supported or disagreed with in one way or the other, depends on which side of the spectrum their loyalty lies. So it's like it's a serious issue, but it's like, man, Patrick, I mean, you just, I'm gonna need a shrink after this.
The work that you guys are doing is it's so important. The work that you guys are doing is so important because it isn't policies that change people and behavior. It's people and behaviors that change policy.
Exactly.
Right. So we really have to be working within the communities to sort of influence behaviors that can then be translated into policies. Because policies reflect that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say, like, here in St. Lucia, for example, domestic violence. The law in St. Lucia is that if the woman for some reason gets scared or is threatened, and as a result she's no longer able to show up in court, the law in St. Lucia is that the courts or the police can't do anything. Whereas me living in the US, it's quite the opposite. If there's a call for domestic violence and the cops show up and they assess the situation and someone is arrested, that person is getting charged and the state will continue with the case with or without the victim's support. And I think in St. Lucia, I've been advocating for that because it so happens that men are physically stronger. Men most times are the breadwinners. And so there are many different ways they can put pressure on a single mom with 3 or 5 kids that say, well, if I break up with you, who's going to take you up with your 5 kids? Yeah. Where is your next bread coming from? And so at the time of the incident, the woman is terrified, she's scared, she's in need of help, she runs to the cops. 2-3 days later, influenced by community members, friends, family of that guy, who paints this doom future for this woman if she continues along with the justice. And they back off. And so this man goes scot-free. And when I'm saying this, I'm talking about every level. I've been doing some research, and police officers, women, are one of the most abused individuals who don't report it. They don't want their colleagues to make fun of them because it's like a joke. It's like, oh, your man beat you, or your man give you a little pluck and you're making a big fuss, as if domestic violence is just so normalized that it is understood that your man is supposed to beat you. And I'm like, which century are we living in? You know? And so it's crazy if the people who are supposed to enforce the laws are carrying out this abuse themselves, then who do you really report it to? Who is supposed to help the victims? And even worse, in our community, our society has this thing where, well, there's no way a man gets abused. Like, if you as a man get abused and you report that, oh, your life is over. It's like you called every homophobic slur that has never even been invented. Because it's like, you weak, you soft, you this, you that, a woman beats you. I mean, dominoes, you can't even go play dominoes anymore because every time there's a joke, it's about you and the fact that you were abused. So men don't even report that. And so you find it's like violence is on the rise in every capacity, on every level. The pandemic has brought, with all the lockdowns, people have had to spend a lot more times in their homes together. Most times people that don't seem to get along, but when they were both going to work, they had 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours away from each other. Breathing space. They come home, they prepare dinner, they say goodnight, they go to bed. But now that people are with each other every day, it's crazy at the level of violence that we have. And it's like, it's sad because when it's like, okay, so that's happening at this level, but when you look at the highest level, cops are involved, lawyers are involved, ministers are involved, and sometimes you just feel helpless. You really feel helpless.
And I suppose, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, no, Shamel, I know we can come back to that, and because obviously change is slow because of that very thing that you just mentioned there, Venus. But Shamel, I know you might need to leave, or you might need to go because you've got another appointment. Yes. I can't hear you. I don't know if you're on mute.
Sorry, yes, I was muted. Yeah, I was not
Yeah,
sending a message there to say I really have to step out. But
I know.
I've been really enjoying this conversation, and I'm just so happy that we're having the conversation. And there definitely needs to be so much more of this. And I'm especially happy that there were some men on who have been the ones having these conversations, because a lot of times there are things that we women were passionate about. You know, we're talking about intimate partner violence and all of these other things. And if you talk about it so much, people start to think, oh, shut up, you're a feminist, you're a this, and you start to get labeled and you start to. But it's so good to hear men equally as passionate about injustice, equally as passionate about just going out there and righting wrongs. And I'm just so happy to be part of such a community. So I really want to thank you for having me. And it was so fantastic meeting all of you across the region who, you know, doing fantastic work too. So I'm sure we'll stay in touch. Patrick, I will try to get your contact because I would love to chat with you
Yeah.
some more.
Yeah.
And yeah, so have a
That'd be
good
good.
rest of this talk.
No, and thank you so much for joining us, Shamel. I was gonna say, I think there's a whole heap of opportunity for Jabez House across the Eastern Caribbean as well. So I think Venus is gonna be contacting you to help set up some stuff over there in St. Lucia and different, and and
That would
Donnie
be
and St.
great, because
Vincent
that's
as well.
definitely one of my plans. Really, is to kind of roll out some other Jabezos models across the region. I really believe
Nice.
in being proactive, and I know there are agencies, yes, who like Patrick's work. You know, they're working with groups. You know, they're doing a lot, but I haven't found like specific programs like this where then outside of just the food and the this, there are actual places. There's something that someone can come in and scale up and, you know, just receive all of this and have that, you know, real extra boost in terms of opportunity and practical access to economic empowerment and stuff. So yeah, it would be good for us to have those conversations and to see,
Indeed,
you know, what
indeed.
can happen.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
make that
but
happen.
we
Sure.
definitely made that happen. But Shamel, thank you so much. And we also want to say
Thank you.
thank you for the work that you're doing as well, because it's great that we're getting under the hood and talking about some of the issues that we have. But also this conversation was to say thank you to you guys and the sacrifices that we know you're making to do what you're doing. So I know you can't stay for the full talk, but thank you so much. And guys in the audience, send lots of love as well to Shamel. We're going to
Thank you,
share her
everyone.
details
Thank
so
you,
you guys can get
Valerie. So you're
involved.
all right.
All
So
right.
we'll talk again soon, and we'll definitely stay in
Indeed.
touch. Yes.
We
All
will have you
right.
back
See
on. Don't
you.
worry about that.
Yes, sir.
Okay then. Bye.
Sure. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Mark. You were
Awesome.
starting to say something.
Well, I was going to ask Amanda to give us some hope, because listening to the conversation, we've got the challenges with the lawmakers, the challenges with the enforcers of the law, but people like yourselves are staying in it, being consistent, and just keeping that support going. What's keeping you going?
Well, to go back to the issue of policy, there were two major things that took place in the last 5 years that gave me a lot of hope. In Trinidad and Tobago, the marriage acts were amended in 2017 to discontinue the legal marriage of children. And then later on in 2017, there was the Jones judgment concerning the buggery law, and not just the buggery law in Trinidad and Tobago, but also the law that made illegal any sexual practice between persons of the same sex. Because one of the things I kept thinking about when Venus and Patrick were talking about sex crimes in their countries was how much of it was driven by homophobia, and how much of it was driven by ideas of girls and women as sexual objects. And so much of that is related to laws and systems of laws, which of course begs the question of who makes these laws and how could these laws be changed, and what is preventing not just laws being changed in one area of the Caribbean, but throughout the Caribbean, throughout the world even, because concerning the Jones judgment, one of the really important legal points that came up was the savings clause, and how much of our current legal systems throughout not just the Caribbean but throughout the Commonwealth is impacted on by the savings clause, that certain points can't be amended because that is there still. And this is why the Jones judgment, even though it relates so strongly to LGBT policy, is important to all Commonwealth territories, regardless of your stance on LGBT, because that would set a precedent concerning the savings clause. If this Jones judgment is successful, it overturns the savings clause, and therefore we could move forward more progressively in terms of policy across the Commonwealth and hopefully in the Caribbean. I did feel a little triggered when Venus was talking, and I think he will agree with me concerning the point about 16-year-olds being able to marry but not being able to vote. I mean, these are clearly young people. The just fact that they're not able to vote already says that we see these people as not being adults.
Absolutely.
And yet we put them in situations, we allow them to be in situations sometimes in which they are at risk of violence.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why it was very important to me in 2017, and I was part of the campaign in Trinidad and Tobago that lobbied for the amendment of the Marriage Acts. And one of the happy results of that was a harmonization between the legal age of marriage and the age of consent being 18 years old, with a caveat that allows the marriage of 16-year-olds with the consent of their parents. So thankfully it's not, I mean, we hope that it's not situations of predation in which some older man is, tracking a young girl and then getting her into a terrible place in which she's not making a proper choice based on her age. But in terms of policy, we have so much work to do through the region. But those 2 points were 2 bright points to me in the last 5 years. Policy concerning minors and minors within situations of marriage and the discontinuation of the legal marriage of children, and also the Jones judgment.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the Jones judgment? Because I'm not completely clear on that, actually.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, in 2017, Jason Jones, who is a Trinidadian, challenged the state, bringing a legal case concerning the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago and the Sexual Offences of the Person Act, the buggery law in particular, that states that it's illegal for men to have sex with other men. Basically, this is what it comes down to. But the thing is, this is what it came down to in the minds of the public. The buggery law, of course, includes any penetration of the anus. But further to that, Jason also challenged the law that made illegal sexual practice between persons of the same sex. So his case covered homosexuals, it covered lesbians, transgender persons, anybody who's having sex with someone who is of the same, assigned sex as them. It covered all of that. And thankfully, the first round of that case was successful and was deemed unlawful in Trinidad and Tobago. It was overturned. The status of it in Trinidad and Tobago as unlawful was overturned. Of course, it moved to the Privy Council, and so that is still a matter at law. But like I said before, if it goes all the way through successfully, what happens is that he overturns the savings clause, which really protects, in a strange way, all of these archaic laws that we know are outdated, that we know can easily be challenged, and indeed people have been challenging them throughout the years. I know there's Maurice Tomlinson, for example, in Jamaica. I'm sure Patrick knows him. So So, with all good faith, I hope that the Jones case continues its success, because this would mean a great deal in terms of how we move forward with policy in the Caribbean and throughout the Commonwealth.
Well, let's
Yeah.
hope.
Archetype.
Patrick, I wanted to ask you a question because I'm sure you see so much in your work. You talk to so many people, you come across so many situations, which are just harrowing, honestly. And the average person probably can't comprehend and take in some of the stuff that you see. And I'll probably come to each of you about this as well. I just want to ask, how are you looking after yourself and your mental well-being and what's not? Because I know that's probably a question you don't get asked too often. But, as I say, we're here to thank you guys and really uplift what you guys are doing. And I thought that was probably an important thing to ask.
And it is, and I'm glad you are asking it, because very few people do, as you say, and it is something that's critical to those of us who do this kind of work. The things you see sometimes. I could just relate when I heard Venus speaking earlier. He said he's out some odd hours simply because he could not sleep. He could not just go to bed and say, I'll do it tomorrow, simply because he just maybe wouldn't sleep for the rest of the night, knowing that somebody out there and this is an immediate need. So we sometimes are so stretched. Sometimes we go the mile beyond the extra mile. And we see so many harrowing things that sometimes they take a toll on us. So one of the things we do in our organization, we have a licensed psychologist at each of our sites that we operate across the island, and that psychologist also provides services to our staff as well, to be able to come, sit, talk, share anything that you have. We also have a weekly, like every Monday morning, what we call a team briefing. And this is really a space when, besides talking about the work, our team members get to let off all that's happening.
Talk about how they feel.
Talk to each other. Yeah.
So it's right. So I remember a new member of staff joined the team once, and when she was in this first meeting, she said, wow, this is a very feely meeting. It was at first that she just couldn't get with it. She just couldn't understand. But it's so necessary that we have that weekly, once per week. Every member of the team gets to do that. The psychological support is also there. And then one of the things we have had to, it's very hard to, we are not 9 to 5 that close the office at 5 o'clock and the work stays there. And Venus gave the perfect example of that. And I think it's the same for all of us. None of us, it's 9 to 5 when you close the office at 5. So we have had to have those times for our staff to take a break. If this is going to be a weekend away, it has to be no laptop, none of that phone that everybody reaches you on. All of that has to be locked away, and it's just that phone where the family and key persons who need to get to you have that. We have had to have moments like that as well to just deal with the
decompress. And Venus, a similar thing to yourself, because I know Patrick is in an organization perhaps with those structures. You are now doing the same, but you also was, doing a lot of stuff, heavy lifting on your own. How are you looking after yourself?
Exercise, diet, you try to get sleep. For me, I'm fortunate to have a team of people, not just my NGO of Rise St. Lucia, but I have a group of young men from Grosile Seaview, which we call Seaview. We are considered a ghetto. We are considered a gang, but instead of a gang that's into violence and drugs and all of that, we tend to get together to help our community, help each other. So we have a group where we send morning greetings and we tell each other, I love you. And I got to tell you, that's something new, because growing up in St. Lucia, it's very rare that you heard young men that went to school together, know each other, actually hug and say "I love you" because of the homophobics. Like, yeah, because people just thought that if two men hug and say "I love you," people automatically thought,
I'm agreeing with you there, because I'm saying I'm here trying to think if I've ever even said that to any of my male friends, to be honest with you.
You never said it to me.
well, this is it. I hear thinking, well, even the three of us, we ever say that to one another? I don't even
and
think
just
so.
to be clear, you've never said it to me either.
Oh, I just.
Well, guys, there is still time.
There's still time. So yeah.
How about we give them a moment right now?
The guys are coming to session. Mark, I love you, man. Phil, I love you too, buddy.
Thanks, Andrea. Me too.
Me too.
That's funny. It's interesting because we are still not there in Jamaica yet. We have our very small circles in which that will happen, but that's a no-no.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's one of the things. I mean, it's one of the things people you fight. Like, we say we're free, we say that slavery is over, but some of the everyday things that we do that we struggle with, I wonder, like, the chains are still there, So I'm very fortunate. Two of the founding members of Arise St. Lucia are doctors. Dr. Stephen King is a former CMO of St. Lucia, and Dr. Jacqueline Bird is a child doctor. And they've been, I mean, like I said, they've had this going on from 2007, providing scholarship for students. Enacted a mobile hospital where they drive through the different communities and the ghettos to ensure that kids have, the medical attention that they need and stuff of that nature. So I have really educated and successful people in my organization that I can always vent to. Dr. King and we just vent because, like, growing up in the ghetto, having to fight every day, like physical fight every day for a meal, traveling, making the change to a business person, working in a corporation and doing all of this, you tend to try to channel off some of that aggression you grew up with. But sometimes some of those stories that come across your table, when you get a call or a text message from a single mom who's showing you pictures of physical abuse and sending you screen messages of verbal abuse as well, and like, you call the cops and there's like, has she made a report? Is she willing to make a report? Well, our hands are tied, and you just like, sometimes you just want to call the boys on the block and say, let's roll with me. And then you tell yourself, okay, no, because I'm also advocating against all kinds of abuse and all kinds of violence. So you don't return violence to violence. And you say, okay, maybe I can talk to this guy. And this guy looks at you and be like, man, you're a punk. Ain't nothing you can do to me. You get that kind of feedback from them and sometimes you just, luckily when I'm in St. Lucia, there's a beach and you can go and just take a swim and just chill and decompress. Like, you have to decompress yourself. You have to decompress yourself. And Patrick, I heard what you were saying about taking the day off and turning off the phone. I haven't learned that yet. I have two phones. This is the local one that people are supposed to reach me on, but they somehow have my other number and they have me on social media. And even at times when I say, all right, I'm not touching this, my mind goes like, okay, so what if someone is now trying to commit suicide and trying to reach you? So I find myself checking the messages because I know there's that possibility. And so I'm never off. I'm a 24-hour service person. I try to sleep. I'm in the habit, if I wake up in the middle of the night for water or a bathroom break, my eyes are not really opened yet. I'm like this, like in the light of the phone, like still, because I know that there's a call, there's a message, there's something. And so I try to just like eat properly and exercise and try to do different things because I can't seem to tune off or take a break from all of that. And it's just because the need is there, and COVID has, oh my God, it's a whole new experience, and I'm still trying to figure out how to take that break from everything at times.
We need a bunch of Kerrys.
I've been there. If I may, I've been there, Venus, and what I'll say to you is, I've been there where I couldn't do it, but I've learned to do it when someone said to me one day, you will be of no value to all these people you try to help
Yeah.
if you take no time for you.
Mm.
And that has
True.
stayed with me
Yeah.
that has stayed with me up until today. We are going to be of no value to all these people we help if we don't take some time
True.
for
That's a good point.
yeah.
Absolutely. And listen, Amanda, we've got to, pose that same question to yourself. How are you looking after yourself?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the question. This is something I have had to think about a lot, especially in the last 2 months, because I have an ongoing very public legal matter as a result of challenging a well known feminist organization concerning intimate partner violence. And so many people have, on a day to day basis, checked in with me, showed great support. Um, and in addition to dealing with that, I have a job and I have multiple projects and I have friends and family to take care of. And as you're saying here, I have to take care of myself as well.
Yeah.
So from day to day, I try to find time to do things that I absolutely love, like gardening, cooking, remembering simple things like taking my vitamins, and at risk of sounding overly romantic, love remains very important to me. I'm really thankful for my partner being so incredibly supportive, so incredibly thoughtful, and he has really shown up for me in ways that mattered most in these years. So in those ways, I'm looking after myself by treasuring those things, focusing on those day-to-day actions and exercises that make me really happy.
Yeah.
And I have found that personal check-in with myself helps me to operate more effectively in my professional capacities.
I was going to ask
I,
another. Go
I
on,
also
Venus.
I also found that it's easy for me to keep doing this because I absolutely love doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a job or a chore. I just see it as the way I love football, the way I love sports. I see helping people as one of my hobbies that I absolutely love doing. So, you know how, as tired as you might be, your boys call and say, let's play dominoes. And you're like, yes, I've been waiting for that. So, dominoes is on. And then as soon as you get home, you're done, you're just gone. That's how I feel when I'm helping people. Like, no matter where the call is, in St. Lucia, I go. I'm from the north, but traveling to Soufrière or Vieux Fort or anywhere in between doesn't seem like a burden to me. I make a joy of it. I have fun along the way. I do a live, I play my music, I stop here, I interact with farmers here, I build networks and interactions along the way. So it doesn't seem so much of a task. I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes when I get home and I just sit on the couch and I say, all right, let me just take 5 minutes to relax before I hit the shower. And then the alarm goes up at 6:30 and I'm like, damn, boy, you didn't even shower. So, but I mean, unlike Amanda rightfully said, I mean, I work a full-time job. I am the senior instructional designer for Penn Medicine in Philadelphia. So I have projects, I have deadlines, I have teams that depend on me. I teach sometimes. I teach online classes. So it's a full schedule. But fortunately for me, like I said, I have an amazing team, both of Rise St. Lucia and Seaview, who, no matter where I'm at in the world, if I call and say, hey guys, this needs to get done, the team is on it, in terms of getting names of people in the different communities in need, what the needs are, doing the vetting process, getting the information, those that create the database, so we know, okay, people for food is that section, people for devices, elderly for wheelchairs. So, I have a team around me. So it's not, all of the work is not just me, but even for my team, sometimes I worry because I have a young lady, Natoya, she handles all the suicide calls and the abuse and stuff. And, and it's a lot on everyone. Dr. Bird and and Dr. King been doing this for so long in terms of what we have, what we call safe spaces, is actually an umbrella under Rise St. Lucia, where they try to work on. We have Betty, who has been, if we can give credit to one St. Lucian who has worked tirelessly to stop the crime rate from rising in St. Lucia, is this young lady who's gone in the ghettos and gotten all the gang leaders to come together and to try to put peace, and constantly, and crime never stops. Gun violence is on the rise in St. Lucia, and this young lady is out there every day putting her life at risk in every ghetto, because she's been there. She's been in the justice system. She knows what it's like. And so Rise St. Lucia will undertake in so many different things, because again, it's never just one issue at a time, and trying to get policies in place. And sometimes you get dismissed by government officials simply because you might have said something they thought was political, or you didn't agree with something the government said or did, and you called them out on it. And so automatically they label you as part of the other party. And so when you come with an issue, they just automatically dismiss you, and you have to keep fighting. It's a lot. But when you have a team of people that are truly committed to the same goal, it's a lot easier, facing those battles. So I guess I'm taking that time to say thanks to my team from Rise St. Lucia and CBU for having me, entrusting me as the chairman, and just the work continues. Like I tell people, the mission never ends. There is always going to be a child in need of a device. There's always going to be an elderly person in need of medication or a wheelchair or something. And so I tell people I love doing this, and hopefully God gives me the health and strength to continue to do this for the rest of my life. So I will rest at some point.
That was actually the question I was gonna ask, because whenever we work in community projects, especially if it's in areas of trauma and dire situations, sometimes we have two paths. One is that we actually hope that there comes a time when we don't have to do this, that society actually elevates itself, and my cause is therefore no longer a thing that we have to go after, right? Even if we like working on it. Yeah. But the second thing there is what you brought up there, Venus, is that at some point in time, Venus, Cherry, Amanda, Patrick, Mark, Philip, Andre, we go, right? And the question is, are we also preparing people to fill those gaps, even if the mission changes, right? As you said, there's always going to be something else that Rise will have to deal with. Are we also preparing the next generation to be champions of community, to look out for the elderly, for the vulnerable, and so on? Yeah.
Go ahead, Venus. You, Janet.
Well, yeah, that's a great point. That's what happened in February. Dr. Stephen King, Dr. Bird, Ninja Dan, the founding members of Rise St. Lucia, they've been doing it for a long time, and they simply been working with young individuals, all age, all race, all status, for this mission. So Rise St. Lucia doesn't die with Venus Cherry or Dr. Bird or Dr. King. Rise St. Lucia is a continued process. We have volunteers throughout the country who are part of safe spaces, working in every community. So even if the organization itself was to disband, the idea is already entrenched in our communities. The idea of giving, the idea of supporting, the idea of coming together. And rightfully, when Dr. King when we did our press conference, when I became the chairman, he said he phrased it as the passing of the baton.
Yeah.
It's a continuous race, and we need young people, we need leaders to come in. And like he said, they're not going away. They're there to provide support, they're there to provide help and assistance, but the face of the organization is a little different, but they're still there, because what we have learned and what we must always remember, our elderly have a vast of knowledge that we are yet to comprehend and that we are yet to receive. So if we have those elder folks still involved to provide this idea, because I might have an idea as a 42-year-old and I want to run with that, but Dr. Bird just might say, hey, wait a minute, we haven't taken into account the child laws, or how that will affect minors and stuff of that nature. That I may not have thought of. I might have been so excited in that one idea that I may have overlooked that. So our organization is built with, I don't want to say old, I want to say experienced,
Yeah.
I don't want Dr. Bird to hear me call her old. I'm going to say experience,
Yeah.
seasonal experience people
Season.
and
Yes.
younger people coming in. So hopefully the passing of the baton continues, and we would hope one day that we won't be needed, that our society would enact laws and rules and regulation that is fair and just, and that our justice system is really just, and that people don't spend years on remand in St. Lucia without a court hearing, or people are not innocent in jail for 5 6 years until they're said, oh, you can go. We would hope that the bails bond system doesn't only favor the rich and those that can put up land and assets, and as a poor person that is innocent, you have to sit in prison because your parents have nothing to put up for. We would hope all of these things would be true and our society would be a perfect one, but we all know that is not the case. As long as there is a need for profit and economy, there will always be rules and regulation that benefit one aspect of our society, and the underprivileged will always need people like us to keep fighting for them.
I agree. I agree.
Amen
I was
to
just
that, bro.
wondering, Patrick, as well, and just expanding what Philip asked just now. How do we get people to get as enthused as you guys are, to put their hands to the work, to see the issue and get involved and to want to continue? So someone, I think Hal Springer said, succession planning is hard because many people don't want to do the hard work.
Yeah.
But you guys, I'm sure, sacrifice a lot. How do you encourage society at large to not just, it's great that sometimes they send money to the GoFundMe. It's great, but sometimes you need some real people on the ground willing to do some stuff. I'm just wondering if you had a view on that, Patrick.
That comment about succession planning is so true.
Yeah.
It is indeed a challenge and something that you have to make a very deliberate effort to do.
Yeah.
It's not just going to fall in place.
That doesn't just happen.
And
Yeah.
one of the things we do, we have a very vibrant volunteer program, which gets people, because a lot of this work is rooted in, you have to love people and
Yeah.
love to see people's lives improve. That is
There you go.
sometimes it's not even so much about the compensation that you get for those of us who do this as paid work, but it's that love for people and the satisfaction you get from seeing their lives improve. That is what is going to keep this work going. So you have to get volunteers in to understand that what you are doing here is touching lives, and it's way more important than just handing out a package. You're not just handing out a package, but you are touching lives of people who will have children, who will grow up and who will remember that someone lent a hand to them and will want to do the same. Venus spoke about remembering that, he got, whether it be the broken toys or the clothes, whatever, he got something from somebody that helped him come through. And because of that, he remembers that, and it motivates him to want to give back to somebody. So we have to get people to be a part of the program, whether it's they come in and 2 hours. It's not just about donating something, but come in, spend 2 hours and work with someone living with HIV. Look at the challenges that they have,
Yeah.
provide the support for them, and then see the satisfaction that this person get from knowing that you were just there, spending that hour with them. And if we get more young people involved at that level, then it is something that they will develop. It is not something that will happen overnight.
That's tremendous. Absolutely
point.
fantastic.
I get that.
I had so this is gonna be an interesting question here. So I'm just wondering, Amanda. So we talked a little bit about before, sometimes when Patrick was talking, just to mention in buggery and stuff, all of a sudden people think you want to legalize something, and the community hasn't changed, and there's still a very conservative view of certain things. Now, you mentioned initially at the beginning that you're a feminist, and I just thought I would wonder, when you go into certain situations, do you find that the tone of the person speaking to you change when feminist is injected into the conversation, and why is that, do you think?
Yes, I do. And this is because I think this is because of the way in which we were introduced to feminism as children. I'm going to be 40 in December, just to bring this into context.
Wow.
And in the 1980s, when I was a small child, when I heard the word feminism for the first time, to me, it sounded like this monstrous thing, you know?
Yeah, of
And
course.
then even as a teenager and even as a young woman in my early 20s, still the ways in which feminists were presented in the media, in film, on television, was not necessarily in flattering terms. And even when we saw actual feminists operating in full political will, they were still represented by the media as being iron ladies, you know? And so in the last 10 years, I have noted that the tone of Caribbean feminism also changed to include a lot of Americanisms, so American ideas around feminism, um, which may, which in many ways has been a very good thing, but in other ways it also meant a movement away from indigenous feminisms in the Caribbean and focus on indigenous feminisms in the Caribbean. And one person said to me that she will never identify as feminist because feminists don't seek her interests as a Black woman. And in that regard, she sees feminism as being related to white supremacy. And and
I've heard that.
and you know, a good point to make, and one that is worthy of discussion, because in fact if we look at feminist movements in the United States,
They didn't
we
start for
can
us.
in fact we can in fact pinpoint exactly that they were not necessarily operating with Black women
They
or
weren't including
other
us in that
minority
thing. Yeah.
exactly, or other minority groups in mind, and we could make a case that they were not including LGBT persons as
Yeah.
well. And that is why, like, ever since this conversation began, I have continued to refer to indigenous Caribbean feminisms, because feminism to me is not one place or one society or one group of people. It is action that acts affirmatively towards women and girls. And this could be found across the world, in any society, in any place. Winnie Mandela in South Africa, that was a strong representation of feminism outside of the United States, outside of, to put it in a racial context, outside of white feminists. And the Naya society in India, for example, that is so matriarchal. And I mean, we can make a list of many great examples, but of course, we could bring it right back home to the Caribbean. And as I mentioned before, telling our personal stories of seeing the ways in which women in our areas of operation acted in their behalf and on behalf of the women around them. So while I still receive some negative
Bit of side eye.
attitudes, some negative attitudes,
Yeah.
I still plow on. I still encourage young women to not only act in feminist ways, but also to identify that the ways in which they're acting are indeed feminist. That falls
mean,
under the
So, what are feminist ways? I guess that's my next question.
Well, I mean,
Just
so
to keep
much
the
of
conversation going, I'm actually
Yeah.
genuinely interested. I got two girls, so it's interest. I like to explore. So interesting to find out.
Well, I dare say that every person on the conversation today sounded like a feminist to me. I mean, the whole conversation that we had concerning sex workers and so much contribution concerning specific needs of women in sex work. We spoke about migrants, refugees, asylum seekers, and specific needs of women within those groups. We spoke about child marriage. And we spoke about policy related to women and girls as well. And of course, whenever we talk about any target group, what brings an interesting challenge to the conversation is also to gesture towards how this target group is interconnected with other target groups as well. So I appreciated, for example, when we were on this topic of sex workers, that Patrick brought up the concern about male sex workers as well. And I saw one person in the comment section there talking about it also. One of the unfortunate perceptions of feminism historically has been, that feminists don't like men, not concerned about the issues that men face, and that's entirely untrue. It's just understanding that some issues relate heavily to persons in targeted groups based on the fact that they exist in those groups.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we are all feminists.
I'll probably wear the badge.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like
I never called myself
Chimamanda.
That,
Exactly, Philip. Exactly.
Chimamanda Ngozi.
Yeah, I definitely wear that. But we wanted to give over the show today to people like yourselves, just doing some really great stuff across the region. We call you guys, community heroes, everyday heroes, and what's not. We know you don't refer to yourself as this. You're just doing something that you're passionate about, and you really love people, as Patrick says, and you want to see them, elevated and come out to whatever situation they might be in for the better. You guys put your hand to the till. But honestly, to some of the people that you guys are helping, you are heroes, really. That's the truth of it. And for us, observing what you guys are doing, the sacrifices you're making, we really wanted to bring you guys and honor you guys and say thank you from a region that's really, really, really thankful for all the stuff that you guys do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any add to that, Mark?
No, I it's been a fascinating, deeply insightful journey into how far we have to go as a Caribbean. That's the honest truth. We've learned a lot, but we've got a long way to go. And your work is very admirable, fully in there, doing what is necessary and still seeing hope, which is always going to be so important. So I just want to say a huge thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Indeed. Phil?
Yeah, I was just saying what was exciting in this conversation was all the links and the commonality and finding similar experiences, similar observations, and maybe similar solutions and approaches. And I love what Patrick said, because I was going to ask, how do you keep yourself going? And he just said love for people, as a real foundation. And some stuff I've been reading recently is this Maslow hierarchy stuff. Where he says the first need of human beings is physiological, but now sociologists are saying Maslow has it wrong. Physiological is not our first need; is connection and community, and physiological actually follows that, and the evidence is starting to show that our basic need is really each other and connection. So the work you guys are doing is absolutely fundamental for our human experience, and we need to get not just behind you, but beside you and connected to what you're doing. Engage with it.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, I agree. Now go ahead there, Venus. Final word to you guys. Venus, starting with you.
The final word, I think it's important that as a Caribbean community, we start to teach our kids from early on. I mean, every country is struggling with crime and the rise in crime, and we're all saying, well, what can we do to stop violent crime? Well, maybe if we taught them conflict resolution early on, maybe instead of when a child took something from another child, we just beat that other child and put that child in a corner. Maybe if we made them talk about it and express how they felt. How did you feel when he took your stuff? Well, why did find out why did you? Maybe if we started that early on, maybe it would be something that they took to themselves when they left the classroom or when they left the work environment. Because I think there's a saying in St. Lucia that you can't bend a grown tree. You can only bend it whilst it's young and put a stick to it so it can grow up straight. So maybe if we try to bend our kids in that direction early on, maybe, just maybe, we would take care of all the things that we're struggling with. Maybe if we didn't teach boys that it's blue for boys and pink for girls, and if you were in pink, you were a girl and you gay. Maybe if our culture, maybe that did some cultural changes, maybe, just maybe, our community can thrive differently. So I'm just hoping that parents take that into consideration. This we're always trying to do. You're a boy, you're a girl, and you walk a certain way, you walk funny, you this, you that. You can't tell a man I love you as a friend. You can't maybe if we took those things away, maybe our young men would not grow up thinking they have to be so gangster and so hardcore to make them feel manly. Maybe if they learn to to say I'm sorry, I apologize, and stuff of that nature from very early on. Maybe it would trickle down to when they're grown men, and so the violence would stop.
I
Maybe
believe
if
you.
domestic violence at home was not so accepted, and maybe if men stop beating the women at home and vice versa, the kids wouldn't see it and think, well, that's how you resolve stuff, resolve conflict. So we as a society, I'm for one, I don't give government a pass, I never do, but I cannot pretend that we as a society, we as parents don't have our jobs to do to ensure that our kids are brought up in the right way and in fact help them, resolve the level of crime in St. Lucia. So that's my final thought on what's really going on.
Agreed. Patrick, we're going to give you the final word, Amanda. Patrick.
Some people say regionalism is dead, but when it comes to the Caribbean community, but as I listened to everyone here, I just thought maybe we need to look at regionalism from a different approach.
Come on.
As I heard Venus speak about that man reporting being abused and how that spills over to the domino table. I just heard him talking about Jamaica. And he was there talking about the St. Lucian context. So, I just see so many connections here. The issues are so much the same across the region. And it was a pleasure for me to be a part of this discussion because I see where strong connections can be made and where we can support each other in the work we do. But my final word is just that those of us who have the opportunity to have the authority over children, volunteerism is not so fashionable these days. But it is something, when we talk about the sustainability of this kind of work, when we talk about succession planning, that's maybe some place we need to start in teaching our kids the value of volunteering. Let them get involved in something just to help somebody. And then maybe we won't start wondering if when they older, if I use Venus's word, when the more experienced of us pass on, that the work will not die and the work will not continue. And when we get our children involved, get them to understand the value of this, this work will go beyond funding, beyond NGOs being set up, beyond any of us being around. It will just become people realizing the importance of loving people and helping people.
Yeah.
And that's my final word.
Tremendous.
No, I agree.
Oh.
And just like add to that, and if change is still needed, it will influence policy because those will be the leaders of tomorrow going forward as well. Yeah. So interesting. So great, fantastic. Thank you, Patrick. And Amanda, yourself.
I am reminded about how important writing and documenting your personal story is as an advocate, because it is very important to let people know how you got the things done. Because the idea that you're somehow a special person, that she just gifted, she does this, she does that, when in fact that there are processes and there are certain strategies that you can apply that can make your work more effective. One story I love to tell is in 2014, I was wrongfully dismissed from employment because of this work. And that same day, I walked across to the Ministry of Labor, filed a complaint there, then went to a trade union, filed a complaint there, then got an attorney to send them a pre-action protocol letter, and they agreed to settle out of court, and I got a big lump sum of money and I was able to plan further steps. And I say this to say that oftentimes, like I mentioned before, the process is so mystified. And what I want to do is to encourage persons listening or persons in the audience right now to know that it's a step by step to getting things done. And as much as we honor people on the panel this evening as everyday heroes, to the persons viewing, you can be your own hero. Find out how to get the things done and get the things done.
Really things.
Wow, fabulous.
Fabulous. I 100% agree. And the guys in the comments are loving you guys as well. So guys, I just want you guys to just, get in the comments and just say thank you to the guys for giving up their time, for this evening, but then of their time in general as well for everything that they do. Shamel had to leave us. Donnie, who's doing some fantastic stuff in St. Vincent as well, as he helped people in shelters and what's not after they follow us to as well. He has some connectivity issues, but he sends his apologies for not being able to contribute even more. But he's doing some great stuff as well, and we're going to share some stuff on our page. But guys, thank you so much for joining. It has been encouraging, enlightening, and thought-provoking, I can tell you that. So thank you so much for taking the time for joining us today.
Hey guys, can you guys, have Donnie get in touch with me, because like I told you guys previously, I have some donations for St. Vincent that will raise some funds for St. Vincent. So it's a pity he wasn't able to communicate today, but we'll exchange information and we'll get that going.
Yeah, we're going to make that happen. We can definitely make that happen. But thanks a lot, guys, for joining us.
Thank you.
Wow, real serious conversations there, guys. I really enjoyed that.
It was good. Yeah.
I'm really incredible just listening to the work, so full of admiration. And there's a lot of education that we need to go through as a Caribbean people. That's the truth. Some of what Patrick was saying about our laws, that was like, wow. Can you imagine that we don't even understand how we are being governed, and some of the things that are on the statute books that have been there for generations, that politician after politician after politician seeing it and doing nothing, So it's been a real eye-opener and a good education for me personally today. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Phil. You were going to go.
No, just saying it was great. I like what Amanda was saying there of, there's no mysticism in doing this sort of work. It's a step-by-step process. Because quite often people see things and say, I would do that, or I have some intent, but intent isn't commitment, and once you can start to get the habit, what I get from them is be in the habit of loving people and sharing with people, and everything else starts to follow.
Yeah. I mean, this was such an eye-opener for me, listening to everybody speak this afternoon, because, as Patrick was saying, just the commonality of issues across the region is amazing to hear. Because I think sometimes we pay a little bit of lip service to this whole regionalism and one Caribbean and da-da-da-da-da-da. And sometimes we don't get to the nitty-gritty of conversations and understand that, hey, some of the issues we actually are dealing with right across the region, and we can come together and help solve them. We can come together and put pressure on institutions like CARICOM, to start to do something and, live up to the name you have. And, don't just always tell us about regional security stuff. There's some underground stuff that we really need CARICOM and governments to start working towards, so that as a region we can uplift ourselves, and that was a real eye-opener there for me.
Yeah, I see somebody's asking us to share the contact details of our guests who were in. So I'm just going to cycle back through everybody who was in,
cycle through,
just so people can get a chance to engage with our guests.
Yeah,
is that
go ahead, Phil.
No, just asking if that, because I heard Amanda say she writes, but we can chat that with her.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a good conversation, good Caribbean conversation. And look, that's what we set out to do, which is to bring the region together through conversation, to let us know that we are definitely very similar, and there's more that brings us together than sets us apart. It's a bit cliche, but it's true. And the more and more we do this, the more and more it shows. And that's why I think it was really important we have this conversation, and important that the audience got involved as they did. So we want to thank you guys for being part of it as well. And as we always say, hit share, because if you enjoy the conversation, chances are people in your network will also. Now, you got the benefit of being here live, but this is going to be on the internet, so they're going to have to see it and watch it back. But that's okay. So if you can, for everyone who's watching, hit share, get your network in. Let them know it's worthwhile watching. Let them know it's worthwhile getting involved and just being a part of these conversations as well. And if you haven't already, followed us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, and Twitter as well. Please do follow us. I can do like Philip, hit the like button if it's down there or there or there or there. Hit subscribe if it's somewhere there or somewhere there or there or there. Do whatever, but just follow us, subscribe, invite your friends to follow as well. These conversations are only as powerful as your involvement, to be honest with you. Otherwise, it's just us talking to people and talking to ourselves. But that hasn't been the case. You've been always involved, and week by week, they're getting more and more powerful, and the network is growing, and we want that to continue. So thank you guys so much,
Yeah.
Final words, Corbin?
Well, we do look after ourselves. So sadly, there's no living room next Sunday. We're having a Sunday off.
Oh, okay. And we will call each other and say, I love you.
I love you guys.
Yes.
I don't have no problem with saying it. I was just waiting for you all to say it to me first. But
Oh, you gotta get. Oh, see.
I love you, man.
So we gotta say it first.
No. Let's not be pretentious about it.
Oh, you don't have to be pretentious about it. But look, everyone, you can send me a card. I open the cards, buddy.
Good,
Handwritten. Buy me a blank card and write your note. I want to know it's personally yours, not no hallmark, nothing.
And we're having poetry.
A good point. I for that.
Yeah.
Look, everyone in the audience, thank you so much for staying with us today for a couple of hours. It's a pleasure for us to have these Caribbean conversations with you. And we don't ever take it for granted that you choose to spend your Sunday afternoons or evenings or mornings, wherever you are with us. Thank you so much for showing us your support. Dennis, I love you too. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Until next time.
Yeah. Like a packing up.
I love you.
Love you, Mark. Love you, Philip.
Love you, man.